Hey everybody, my name is Chad and welcome back to the Catfishing and Stuff channel. Tonight I just thought I'd put together a little video and show you, some of the equipment I use catfishing, how I rig it, the knots that I use. There's really only 4 knots that I use catfishing. Very simple stuff. I'm very much a KISS type fisherman. Y'all know what that means. Keep it simple, stupid. I'm all about it. But I got some stuff laid out here on the table that I want to talk about. The line that I use, planer boards, dragon sinkers, different stuff. So anyway, let's get into it. We'll start off. We'll take a look at some of my rods and talk about them a little bit. So let's see. Let me start off here with these rods here. I live in Georgia. And the main lake around here that I fish for catfish, main 2 lakes, is Lake Oconee and Sinclair. And this is the rods that I use. They are the Ugly Stick Catfish. It's a medium heavy, but it's actually a very light rod. But it's great for the fish around here in Georgia. You know, most fish that I catch out of those 2 lakes are going to be 15 pounds or under, and these do a great job with that. I've got 4 with the Cast King 60 reel on them, and I use those for dragging. Those have 80-pound braid, and I'll talk to you in a little bit why I use 80-pound braid. And as you can see, got about a 36-inch leader. It's set up for dragging with the swivel. Now I did add the aftermarket power handle on these, and I like them a lot better now. When they had the paddle handle, I wasn't really crazy about them. Biggest downfall of these is the drag. It just seems like either it's no drag or max drag. There is no in between, and that's my biggest gripe about these reels. Other than that, they do a pretty good job. And the other ones that I have, which I also keep 4 of these rigged, more for like a suspended or anchored type fishing, or same rod, exact same rod, but it's the Cat Max reel, which I'm really not a fan of. I don't like where the bait clicker is. It's just constantly gets knocked on the way I hold a reel. They just don't do it for me. I'm gonna be looking to do something else with these, but as you can see, like I say, I just got it rigged with a sinker slide, and I like the sinker slides that you can take on and off, and and then I'll take and just put whatever weight. I've got weights from anywhere from 1 ounce to 12 ounces, and I just put on there whatever I need. Usually around here we don't have much current, so I'll be 5 ounces or under. Anyway, that's the rods that I fish here locally in Georgia in the lakes here. All right, so moving on next are the rods that I would fish with in the Tennessee River. A lot heavier. Just everything about them is more heavy duty. These are the Ugly Stick Big Water, 7-foot, medium heavy. And on 4, I have 8 of these. 4 of them, I have these Gold Cup Bass Pro Shop reels, and they're okay. I caught a ton of fish on them, and they're doing fine. Really no major gripes about them. Now on all my Ugly Stick rods, they just come with a plain, whatever you call that, foam kind of handle. But I added all this heat shrink on every one of them, and it really improved the feel of them, everything else, especially on the lighter rods that I showed you earlier. It beefed them up a little so that they hold in my rod holders a whole lot better. Again, this is the Ugly Stick Big Water, medium heavy, 7-foot. And the primary reason that I bought these rods in the beginning was the longest rod that will lay diagonally in the bed of my truck. I've got a cover on the bed of my truck because my boat really has no secure rod storage whatsoever. So when I'm traveling, I don't want to feel like if I stop in a convenience store and come out, or 2 or 3 of my rods going to be lifted off. So I wanted a rod that would lay diagonally in the bed of my truck to be able to close it up, and 7 foot's the max I can use. So that was the primary reason that I went with this rod. But I gotta admit, it's a great rod. I really enjoyed them. You can see in the videos where, with the fish on, like the 65 pounder, I mean, no problem, man. Just a perfect bend, it just fantastic. I've been super happy with them. About $80 a piece, and they're great. And talking about the Bass Pro Gold Cup, I think they're about $70, I think. But real happy with them. Man, like I said, I got 4 with the Gold Cup, and then I've got 4 that I use for dragging. Then I've got the Pissy Fun Allijaws 400, which this is the first year that I've used them. It's 2024. And it is a great rod. I mean, a great reel. I've been super happy with them. Very smooth, great drag. It's just fantastic. No gripes whatsoever with that. And then the last one that I use, I don't, like I say, we don't have any current around here. I only use this Tennessee River, something like that, is my bumping rod. And it's a B&M Silver Cat bumping rod, and I've got an Allijaws 300 on it. I added this power handle aftermarket, and it does a great job. And again, it came with a cork handle, and I added heat shrink to it, and it's just been great. I had 2 of these. One of them now resides at the bottom of the river below the Nickajack Dam. I put it in a rod holder, just set it in there, and I forgot about it, and I took off, and it jumped out of that rod holder, and it is now on the bottom of the river. So if you go up there, maybe somebody will snag it one day, and they'll have a great rod. But that's where it's at. Now I only have 1 of them, but it does great bumping. Very, very light rod. It's fantastic. Again, I got 80-pound braid on it, and I'll talk a little bit more about how I rig my bumping stuff. Very simple again, in shortly. All right, so let's get into some of the I guess you call it terminal tackle that I use, and then we'll get into some of the knots that I use. All right, so let's talk about how I set up my dragging rods. What I got an 80-pound braid. Now I'm going to the reason that I use 80-pound braid is not because you need that to catch these fish. You don't need 80-pound braid to catch any fish in the Tennessee River. But what I do need is the diameter of 80-pound braid. And the reason is so that my planer board clips will have enough, that line has enough diameter for my planer board clips to be able to grab onto it and not slip. That's the only reason I use this heavy line. You certainly don't need it to catch the fish, but I do need it to keep my planer boards in place. All right, so anyway, I usually tie, I don't know, anywhere from a 24, 36, maybe sometimes a 48-inch leader, and I'll tie it with just a what's called a surgeon's loop. And the reason for that is I just wrap it around the little the spool brake, and this is the way I'll have my rod, have it tied up. And then coming on up, 3-way swivel, rubber bead, and then also I add this little clip. And what this clip, what I put that on there for is, if, like I was saying earlier, I've got 4 rods set up for dragging. I've got 4 that I keep set up for anchor fishing or suspend fishing. If I want more rods for the anchor, or anchor fishing especially, then I've got this already on the line. All I have to do is take one of these clips and one of my sinkers, hook it on, and I've got a bottom fishing rig. Really fast. I can take it off, hook my dragon sinker on, and I'm back in dragon business. Now, as far as my dragon sinkers, I don't ever hook to this slide because I want that dragon sinker to keep this pinned to the bottom at all times. I can't tell you how many times I've stopped, and with this just laying on the bottom, I get nailed. If you've got the dragon sinker on there and you got this big float right here, start floating up. First thing you know, your bait's way up in the water column. It's not down there where the fish are. And that's not what I want. I want all that pinned to the bottom at all times. Okay, so once I get to the river, and you know, I figure out what kind of bait have I got. Big honkers, little bitty skipjack, white bass. You know, what have I got to fish with? That dictates which one of these that I'm gonna tie on to the end of my leader. If I got big baits, I'm gonna chunk up. I use this right here, a single hook, 10/0. Whisker seeker hook, and head pieces, big chunks. This is what I use. If I've got little bitty skipjack, little bitty bait, I'll use this. I'll just cut the tail off the skipjack, put some slits in the side, and use it as a double hook rig. Pull the whole skipjack, you know, and hook one through the lips, one in the back, and be about like that. And you just drag the whole skipjack. Caught a bunch of fish like that and some nice fish. Now these hooks are the Catfish Sumo hooks, and I have not tried them yet. So that remains to be seen how they're going to work. But I'm going to give them a shot because it's a little smaller hook and it's a little smaller diameter for those smaller skipjack. Won't tear them up as bad as this big whisker seeker does on a double hook. And then this is a 12/0 whisker seeker. To me, this is just too big, and the reason I say that, even this right here, this is a 10. I'm thinking about maybe trying to order some 8/0, because what I run into, especially with this 12/0, when you catch a fish, it almost always, in my case, gets him in the eye and blinds him. I mean, it just destroys one of the eyeballs because it's so long. You know, when you get this in his mouth and it comes through, you know, his eyeball's right there, and I want to do as least damage to the fish as possible, so I don't use these at all. These will get a fish in the eye as well real quick. So Whisker Seeker makes some 8/0. I may order some of them and give those a try too. We'll see. All right, so I mentioned the heat shrink that I use on my rod handles, and this is what it looks like when you get it. And you just put this, you know, cut it to length, put it over the rod, heat it down with a heat gun, and it's just fantastic. It's got a real good feel to it. And if you go to, you know, anywhere, Bass Pro or Academy or anywhere, and you look at the rods and you look at them close, all it is, it's got the same handle, and all it's got this heat shrink on it. And if you look really close, you can tell that. But anyway, this is great stuff. I actually have put this on all my rods now that didn't have a textured handle of any kind, and been real happy with it. So maybe think about giving this a try. All right, let's talk about the line and leader line. Leader line, this is what I use. It's Andy 80-pound and Suffix 832 80-pound braid. Again, you do not need this heavy of line to catch these fish. I don't care how big they are. But what you do need is the diameter on the braid to hold your planer board, or at least I do, because I use Scotty clips, and I'll explain that a little bit in just a few. But the 80-pound braid, the 80-pound mono, what you get from that heavy diameter is the abrasion resistance. If you get the nick, the same size nick in this 80-pound versus the same nick in this 30-pound Andy Monster is huge. The nick that would go nearly halfway through this 30-pound won't even go a quarter of a way through this. So, you know, you just get that strength where you got so much more line that stays intact even after if a nick occurs on it. So that's why I use, you know, the heavy stuff. All right, so talking about planer boards and dragon sinkers, I use the B-Cat boards, but I changed the clip out. This is a Scotty clip, and you can see it's quick release on there. You can, if a fish hits, you can give the rod a good snap and just snap your line out of that, where this just free lines it back down the line to the fish. You're not fighting this planer board. What it comes with is a clip like this, which I can't stand. I've lost several nice fish because of this right here. It's a locking clip, and once you lock your line into that, you're not going to snatch it out. You're going to have to drag that planer board all the way into the boat and then manually flip that to get your planer board to break free. So if you can imagine, if this planer board, you're reeling this planer board in and you're fighting the resistance on it, you get a fish on, especially a big fish, and he's getting it Mach 2 toward the boat, there is not a reel made that you can keep up with that fish. And if he gets slack line between this planer board and himself, he gone. So I ain't all about that. I want a planer board that I can snatch my line out and it's free. It's no longer giving me any resistance. I'm in a straight line, hook up with the fish. So that's why this is gone, and I put these on. Also, these work too, and I've used them because these will wear out after a while. You know, your lines going, they'll just wear out. So I've had some of these, and these are also a snap, but they would have came with a little tit in them, and I cut that out where it's still just a compression fit. Now with these two, you're going to have to deal with your planer boards getting popped from time to time. Bass boat comes in, blows a big wake up on you, doing all this, yeah, it's going to pop your boards. That's just part of it. I would rather have my boards popped a couple of times a day than lose a big fish fighting this thing right here. And that's just the way it is. Alright, so dragon sinkers. These are homemade. I'll do another video maybe soon showing how I make these, but they work great. And I'll make another video. I'll show you, you know, how I make them, why they work great, and some of the older ones that I used to make and what the difference is between these and that. I'll get into that in maybe another video. But anyway, you remember on the 3-way swivel, I just hook it on here and I hook it to the swivel, not a sinker slide. So this is always laying on the bottom, no matter if I'm moving dragging or, you know, if I stop, it's still got my bait down on the bottom. And the reason for these is so that if you got, you know, rocks and stuff on the bottom, as you're dragging along, the idea is that this will ride up and over, you know, any obstacle. If you're dragging flat, come into a rock, bam, you're hung. Sometimes you get lucky, pop it loose, or you got to reel everything in, go back, pull it the other direction to break it free. So that's why I use these. Let's get into some of the knots that I use catfishing. Like I said, there's really 4 knots that I use. That's the clinch knot, or the fisherman's knot, some people call it whatever. And then we got the Palomar knot, which is what I use on the braid. Anytime I tie braid, it's always a Palomar knot. Then I got the straw snail, which is what I use on the circle hooks. And then I use the surgeon's loop, like I showed you earlier, the little loop that I hook over my reel brake, my spool brake, you know, till I figure out which one of these business ends I want to tie on for whatever the situation is. There's also, I use the loop knot and I use a double uni knot, but that's primarily brim fishing and crappie fishing. We'll get into that in a different video. That's why this channel is called Catfishing and Stuff, because I also brim fish a lot and crappie fish a lot, and I will do some stuff on that as well. But for today, we're talking catfish. So the first knot that I use is, you know, the clinch knot, fisherman's knot. What I do, I got a big swivel here, so hopefully you can see it, and this is that 80 pound mono leader, And I will use this for time between any of my swivels with this, stuff like that. So what I do is you're gonna put it through the eye, and you're gonna go one. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 twists. Come through the loop, and then normally I'll wet it, and then you just pull it down just like that, and that's all I do. I don't do the improved clinch or whatever where you go back through. Well, don't let me say I don't do it. I do it with very light line. With this 80-pound line, no. This right here is all you need. Trim your tag, and it's good to go. It's rock solid. Now, when I come from a trip, especially on the Tennessee River, before I go between every trip, every knot gets retied. Because what happens, there's no fish in that river going to break this 80-pound line. But what weakens your line is when the stretch, number one, is pulled out of it. And this knot will eventually get so tight that it begins to cut in on itself, and it'll eventually cut through. Like if you get hung and you break off, if you look really close, it almost always breaks at the knot because it'll just pinch itself in half. It gets so tight. So I always retie every knot between every trip. Every one of them. I mean, no questions asked. No matter how good they look, I go ahead and retie them. I don't want to lose a big fish next time over something stupid like that. But anyway, that's the fisherman's knot, clinch knot, and it's a great knot. I use it a lot. All right, so let's talk about the surgeon's loop. This is my bumping rod here, and other than just a transport loop on my reels, this is the only time that I really use. Well, I can't say the only time. I use it drop shotting for brim, but we'll get into that again later. For the bumping rig, I've got probably same 80-pound leader. Got a swivel in the middle of it. This happens to be an octopus hook, 9/0, I think this is, maybe a 10, and it's snelled on. But where the surgeon's loop comes in is off of my 3-way swivel, main line, main leader, sinker leader. Come down, I don't know, maybe 18 inches, and I've got a surgeon's loop tied. And what it does, you just take your loop, go through the eye. Like I said, this is 17-pound fluorocarbon, a very light line, because what you want to happen is if you hang this sinker, you can just snap this, tie a new little piece of leader on there, and move on. But you just put it over, pull it up, and there's your sinker just like that. So just say you're fishing a 3-ounce, your current's too much, you're not making contact with the bottom, you can just come in, just the exact opposite the way you put it on, take it right back off, and then put you a 4, put you a 5 if you need it. I don't know why you'd ever need a 5, but anyway, that's where I use the surgeon's loop. Now to tie the surgeon's loop, very, very simple. We'll use this 80-pound just so hopefully you can see. Just pull a loop in it, and all you do is just like this right here, come through, and bam. You can do, I think there's a double and all that you can do for something really strong, but for what I'm using it for, this is all you need to hold that sinker. And it's just that simple. Alright, so next, let's look at the Palomar knot, which is what I always use with braid. Now, I think there's a knot that's a double improved clinch knot that they say you can use for braid, but like I said, I want it simple. I ain't into all that. The Palomar does the job, so that's what I do. And the way you tie it, clean this up just a little. You just want to go through the eye of the hook. Now, I would never use this on a circle hook that I can think of, but this is just one example. So what you do, you get it like this, where you got 2 ends coming through. Loop over here, and then you're just going to twist. Come back through. So you got like this, and you got this loop. and then grab your hook, your lure, your swivel, whatever it is, and pull it all down tight. And that's that. That's a Palomar knot. It's super strong. It will not slip with this braid. Very, very strong. That's the Palomar knot. All right, so the last knot that we're going to talk about today is the straw snail. And this is the snail knot that I prefer. There is the no knot snail, I'm sure, that you've heard about, and a lot of people use it, but I just don't trust it. I just feel a whole lot more comfortable when I'm going through the time, the money, and everything else to try to catch one of these big, huge fish. I don't want anything to fail. I'm just a whole lot more confident in this straw snail. Now, it does take some practice, and to get it down and all that. But when it's tied right, it's a very, very strong knot. So the way you start, you're going to come through the front eye of the hook and get you a length of line out as a tail. Now, if you were going to tie a double hook rig, well, I'll get to that in just a second, but you're going to want to pull your tail good and long. You don't want to forget that if you're tying double hooks. So just get your line. You're going to have it laid up right on top of the hook, just like so. Then you're just going to lay your straw right on top of all that and just kind of lightly pinch it with your fingers, and then you're going to start going around the hook and the straw, just like so. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. When I get to the 7th one, I'm just going to pinch down on it. I'm going to take my tail and push it through the straw, come out the other end. All right, now what you want to do is switch hands. So take this finger, hold your tail. Now, very important, you have to pull the tail. Don't pull the straw, or it won't do right. Pull the tail, just like so, and the tail is going to pull that straw out. See that? I'm doing this, I usually do it really quick, but I want you to see. And you see how that cinched down to that beautiful snail? See that? And then you just pull it up to the eye of the hook, keep it snug, just like that. Look at that, isn't that beautiful? And strong. You'll never pull, that'll never slip. Fantastic. That if I'm going chasing these big fish, I want everything jam up, and to me that's jam up. A no knot snail, not so much. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. I'm like all of you. I watch YouTube too. I listen, I try to watch, I try to pick up on everything I can. So hopefully today, some of the things I talked about, maybe give you a few tips. And feel free to comment if you have any tips for me. I'm always open ears. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day.